My brother used to call me a nerd, and to be honest, he wasn't that wrong. I'm that kind of a guy who always wants to learn more. So when I started filming weddings, I was looking to find as much information as possible online. I was spending endless hours looking for forums, YouTube videos, and any other options to learn from the best. After a while though, I realized there was not enough out there. I could find thousands of videos explaining about general filmmaking, but filming a wedding, it's so damn different. I'm Dimos from Your White Moments, and today I'm excited to share with you some crucial tips that I wish I knew when I was starting out as a wedding filmmaker. One of the biggest mistakes every entry-level videographer do is capturing shaky footage. When you start out, you might feel like you need to add movement to every shot. But that's not true. A well-balanced static frame can be just as impressive. When you're viewing your shots on the camera monitor, it's hard to tell how shaky they are until you get home and see the footage. My top advice for new videographers is to use a monopod and keep your shots steady. I know that many of you will say, "Oh, he sounds so old school," but that's not true. Don't get me wrong, I love camera movement, but it needs to be intentional and well planned. This brings me to the next common mistake, which is so many people are slowing down their footage in order to avoid their first mistake, the bad camera shake. I see so many people overusing slow motion in their videos. While slowing down footage can create a dreamy effect, overdoing it can make your videos feel unnatural and boring. Slow motion should contrast with the rest of your footage to highlight special moments. For instance, if your video is mostly normal speed, using slow motion for the exit of the couple with flowers being thrown can make the moment stand out and look amazing. However, if you use slow motion throughout the entire video, it can make everything feel flat and uninteresting. So use it wisely to enhance your storytelling. You've probably heard every video tutorial out there telling you to follow the 180-degree rule. I won't go into the history of the name, but it comes from the film cameras. The essence of the rule is to set your camera's shutter speed to double the frame rate you're shooting at. For example, if you're shooting at 25 frames per second, set your shutter speed to 1/50th of a second. And if you're shooting at 50 FPS, set your shutter speed to 100th of a second. Following this rule gives you the right amount of motion blur, making your footage look natural and some people would say cinematic. However, for wedding and documentary filmmakers who don't always have a controlled environment, this motion blur can sometimes cause issues. Again, don't get me wrong, I highly recommend shooting with this rule, and in fact 95% of my footage is captured this way. But there are situations where you might want to adjust. For instance, if you need to capture a dolly or a gimbal shot quickly and don't have time to set up properly, you might end up with shaky footage. So stabilizing it in post can be tricky if you stick strictly to the 180-degree rule. This is because most stabilization software, except for gyro stabilizers, relies on contrast-based calculations, and motion blur is their worst enemy. In these cases, I crank up the shutter speed to get the crispest image possible, and a higher shutter speed reduces motion blur, making stabilization easier in editing. While the 180-degree rule is excellent for most situations, don't be afraid to adjust your settings when necessary to get the best shot possible. I know everyone says use huge lights with lighting modifiers. The more, the better. And that's true, but let's be real. When I was starting out, I didn't have the luxury to buy big lights or pay someone to carry them all day. And the truth is, it's impossible to manage light stands and big LED lights on your own while shooting a wedding solo. If you're a big company with a crew, you probably already know what you're doing. And in that case, I totally agree with you, the more lights, the better. But for the rest of us, we have to find practical solutions. So use natural light. During the preparation shots of the bride and the groom, I primarily shoot against windows. I usually turn off all indoor lights to avoid color mixing and shoot towards the natural light source. Some people might argue here that wedding shots should be high-key and bright, but I believe that most couples will appreciate a cinematic image over a flat and, yeah, a boring one. I also want to mention that I always bring a LED light with me. Sometimes venues are so dark that even my A7S III struggles. In those cases, having a portable light can be a lifesaver. I believe that by following these tips, you can capture beautiful cinematic shots without needing a truckload of lighting equipment. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope these tips help you become a better filmmaker. Remember, it's not about having the most equipment, but about using what you have creatively and effectively. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep shooting and creating beautiful moments. Bye bye.